You know that feeling when you walk into a room, maybe it's a bar you've never been to or a big meeting with a new client, and before a single person has said a word, before you've even taken off your coat, you just know.
Oh, yeah. Instantly.
Instantly, you can almost like feel the air pressure in the room change, and you turn to your friend, or maybe just think it to yourself, and you're like, the vibes are off.
It's a physical sensation, isn't it? It's not just an idea.
Totally. Or maybe you're scrolling through TikTok at, I don't know, 2 in the morning, your eyes are glazing over, and you see a 10-second clip. It's nothing, really. Just a rainy street in Tokyo, maybe some neon lights on the pavement, and a certain, lo-fi jazz track playing.
And the top comment with 50,000 likes is just 2 words.
It's a vibe.
Yeah. It really has become this ubiquitous phrase of our time. It feels like the default language for how we interact with the world now.
It's how we judge everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
From the lighting in a restaurant to, and this is the crazy part, the electability of a political candidate. You hear people say things like, I don't really like his policies, but the vibes are just immaculate. Or, the other way around.
Exactly. And that is what we are digging into today, because it brings up this massive question, one that, honestly, it keeps me up at night.
Okay.
Is the word vibes just lazy? Is it just slang for people who don't want to think anymore? A way to check out and just say whatever? Or, and this is the premise we're really testing today, is it actually a sophisticated, ancient form of human intelligence that we are just now, in this modern world, learning how to name properly?
That's the mission. Is it a cop-out or is it a superpower?
Yeah.
And to figure that out, we have gone through a massive stack of sources. I mean, we're talking evolutionary biology, jazz history from the 40s, modern cognitive science, and even some really interesting analysis of artificial intelligence.
It's a pretty wild mix. I have to say, I did not expect to see the Beach Boys and cognitive heuristics in the same bibliography.
It is a wild mix, but it all fits together, you'll see. The goal is really specific. We want to unpack this tension between feeling on one hand and thinking on the other, especially in the information age.
Because it feels like those two things are at war right now.
They really do. And by the end of this deep dive, we want to hand you a specific framework, literally like a team of characters for your brain, to help you navigate a world that is, let's be honest, just overwhelming.
Okay, I'm in. Let's dive in. I want to start with the history, because I think most people, myself included, assume vibes is a Gen Z thing. It feels very online, very 2024.
It does.
But the sources suggest we're dealing with something much, much older.
So much older. This is what the researchers we looked at call the paradox of age. The intuition of vibes, the actual biological mechanism for it, is ancient. It's probably as old as humanity itself.
Right.
But the specific language we use to talk about it, that's relatively modern.
Okay, so when you say ancient, you mean biological. Like we're talking caveman times.
Essentially, yes. Long before we had the word vibe, humans were completely obsessed with things like atmosphere, aura, presence, or the energy in a room. If you go back and look at literature from the 1800s, authors were already using the word vibrations, metaphorically. They were using it to describe those invisible emotional impressions that pass between people.
Oh, interesting. So they wouldn't say vibe, but they talk about what?
They write about a trembling in the air when a certain character entered a room, or a sinister presence that you couldn't see but you could feel. It's all there.
So if I walked into a saloon in 1880 and everyone just stopped talking and stared at me, I wouldn't say bad vibes, but I would be feeling the exact same thing.
Exactly the same thing. You'd feel the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Evolutionary biology has a term for this. It's called thin slice perception.
Thin slice perception. I like that. It sounds like a cooking technique, but I'm guessing it means taking a tiny slice of reality and understanding the whole cake.
That's a great way to put it. That's exactly what it is. Your brain is, first and foremost, a pattern-matching machine.
Right.
It reads posture, tone of voice, lighting, shadows, social hierarchy patterns. It reads all of that at speeds that are just infinitely faster than your conscious, logical reasoning.
So it's happening below the surface.
Way below. It takes a thin slice of data. We're talking maybe 2 seconds of interaction, and it extrapolates a conclusion from it. You know you're in danger, or that you're welcome, long before you can actually explain why you know it.
That makes so much sense from a survival standpoint. I mean, if you had to stop and think, let me analyze the trajectory and velocity of that approaching saber-toothed tiger, and let me consider his potential nutritional needs, you'd be dead.
You'd be lunch.
You just need the vibe of run.
Precisely. If you were a prehistoric human walking into a new tribes camp for the first time, you didn't have time to, interview everyone to see if they were friendly. You had to read the vibe instantly.
Yeah.
Your life depended on it. So the phenomenon itself is ancient. It's hardwired right into our amygdala. But the etymological timeline, the journey of the word itself, that's a whole other story. It's a fascinating trip through culture.
Okay, let's unpack that timeline then. Where does the word actually start? Because I'm assuming it comes directly from vibration.
It does. So stage one is the 1600s.
Yeah.
And back then, vibration was purely a physics term. It was scientific.
Okay.
It meant literal physical movement or oscillation, the shaking of a string on a violin or the movement of a pendulum. It wasn't emotional at all yet. It was dry, measurable.
Just mechanics.
Pure mechanics. Until we jump to stage two, which is the 1940s. And this is where it gets really cool. It comes from jazz.
Jazz. Okay, I love this connection already.
Specifically from an instrument, the vibraphone.
Oh, right. That instrument that looks kind of like a xylophone, but it has the metal bars.
Exactly. Metal bars. And it has a motor that spins these little discs in the resonator tubes below them. And it creates this tremolo effect.
A wavering sound.
A wavering sound. It has this shimmering, oscillating quality. And in the jazz scene, musicians, being musicians, they started shortening it to just vibes. Is the vibes player here yet? Get the vibes set up.
Okay, that makes sense. But how did it go from the instrument to the feeling?
Well, think about jazz for a second.
Yeah.
It is deeply improvisational, right? It relies so heavily on the unspoken connection between the players.
For sure. You have to feel where the other musician is going before they even get there.
Exactly. In a jazz quartet, you're not just rigidly following sheet music. You're listening to the drummer's hi-hat, you're watching the bassist's hands, and you have to lock into this shared feeling.
So the word started to drift. It went from the physical instrument itself to the feeling of the music.
And then it expanded to the room itself. You'd be in a smoky club in Harlem or Chicago. And if the band was tight and the audience was locked in, the whole room just had a vibe.
So it became about that shared invisible connection, catching the vibe.
That's the one. And then, as I'm sure you can guess, the next big cultural shift happened.
Stage 3, the 1960s explosion. The counterculture just grabs the word and runs with it. It becomes about spirituality, consciousness, emotional connection.
And there's a specific moment for this, right? A tipping point.
There is. According to our sources, the moment is 1966.
Let me guess. The Beach Boys.
Good Vibrations. That song, more than anything else, pushed the concept right into the mainstream. It explicitly linked vibrations to picking up on invisible cues from another person. I'm picking up good vibrations. It just solidified this idea of being on the same wavelength as someone.
It's fascinating because that song is also musically so weird. It has that Daysman sound. It sounds like a sci-fi movie. It sounds like a literal physical vibration.
It really does. And then for a few decades after that, the word just kind of sat there, right? Like people used it, but it was just regular slang. This bar has a weird vibe. I'm not vibing with this. It was casual.
Right, that's stage 3 kind of extending into the 90s and the 2000s. But we are now, very clearly, in stage 4, the modern resurgence. Since about 2010, the concept has just exploded again, but in a very different way.
And we have to ask, why now? Why has this word completely taken over everything?
I feel like the answer has to be social media.
It's a huge part of it. I mean, platforms like TikTok and Instagram have fundamentally changed how we communicate. They reward mood over explanation.
What do you mean by that?
Think about it. A 10-second clip can't really tell a complex narrative.
Yeah.
You can't easily explain a philosophy in 10 seconds, but you can communicate a feeling instantly.
I
You use lighting, a specific song, a certain aesthetic, and you can convey nostalgia or chaos or loneliness without saying a single word.
It's true. You see a video and you instantly get the vibe of a person's entire life, or at least the life they want you to think they have. The sources had a great term for this. They called it an aesthetic ecosystem.
I love that, aesthetic ecosystem. And it reflects this bigger generational shift, too. The sources point out a move away from the question, what is correct, which is a very structured, old-school, logical question.
What feels right?
Exactly. It's a shift toward authenticity and resonance. And we're even seeing this creep into the professional world now. Terms like vibe coding or vibe-based design are actually popping up in tech circles.
Vibe coding, what does that even mean? It sounds like you just smash the keyboard and hope a website comes out.
Not quite. It's this idea that that intuition and rapid iteration are replacing that really strict top-down structure. So instead of planning every line of code or every design element perfectly in advance with some giant requirements document,
You just flow with it.
you flow with it, you iterate based on how the product feels to use, not just what the technical specs say. Does the animation feel snappy? Does the user interface have a good vibe?
So we've gone from physics to jazz to the Beach Boys to TikTok and now to software engineering. That's quite a journey.
It is. But here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a little tricky, because while vibes are a valid form of perception, we established that with the biology, we are living in a world that was built on facts, on data, on logic.
And that brings us right to the central conflict of this entire deep dive, the tension between vibes and truth.
Let's really unpack this, because on one hand, we have all of enlightenment, thinking, reason, evidence, arguments, footnotes, the scientific method.
And on the other hand, we have this modern culture of feeling and intuition and resonance.
And they seem to be crashing into each other at very high speed.
They are. And the root of the problem, according to the source material, is that truth isn't just one single thing. We use that word as if it's this monolith, but it's actually more like a spectrum. When vibes clash with facts, it's usually because we're talking about completely different kinds of truth without realizing it.
Okay, walk us through these types of truth, because I'll admit, I usually think something is either true or it isn't. End of story.
And that's how most of us think. But the sources break it down into 4 categories, and this framework is honestly so helpful for understanding arguments. First, you have objective truth.
Okay.
This is the stuff that is verifiable, repeatable. Gravity. Water boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level. 2 + 2 is 4. It doesn't care how you feel about it.
Right. You can't vibe your way out of gravity. If you jump off a building, you're going to fall, no matter how good your vibes are that day.
Exactly. Objective truth is the bedrock of reality. But then you have experiential truth.
Experiential.
This is something that is true from the inside of a person's life. If you say, this conversation hurt me, or this place feels peaceful to me, that is true for you. No amount of data can disprove your feeling. You can't fact-check someone's pain.
Okay, so that's valid too. If I say I'm cold, you can't just show me a thermometer that says 72 degrees and tell me, no, you're not. I am experiencing cold.
Right. But then it starts to get messy. It gets messy with the next 2 types, interpretive truth and social truth. Interpretive truth is the meaning we construct from the objective facts. It's the story we weave. So, the unemployment rate is down 1%. That's an objective fact. The unemployment rate is down, which means the president is doing a good job. That is an interpretation.
Ah, I see. The story about the fact.
Exactly. And finally, social truth. This is basically the norms and shared stories we all agree on to make society work. Money is a social truth. It's just paper and metal, but we all agree it has value, so it does.
So where does the clash happen? Where do vibes and truth collide?
The clash happens when person A is speaking in vibes, which is usually their experiential truth, and person B comes back demanding objective truth.
Give me an example.
Okay, so I say, I don't trust that guy. He has really bad vibes. And you say, where's the evidence? Show me the court documents. Show me the criminal record. Where are the facts?
Right.
Person A is sharing a valid internal signal. Maybe they picked up on a weird microexpression or a strange tone of voice, that thin slice perception we talked about.
Yeah.
But person B is playing a completely different game. They're playing the game of logic and proof and evidence. Both people are operating correctly within their own frameworks, but they are just completely talking past each other.
It's a language barrier. One person is speaking poetry and the other person is speaking law.
That's a perfect analogy. And in a polarized world, we see this constantly online, right? One side is screaming facts and statistics, the other side is screaming feelings and lived experience, and absolutely nobody is listening.
And that exhaustion, that leads to vibes becoming a coping mechanism. We've all heard someone say it, it's not that deep, or it's just a vibe.
I use it's not that deep all the time.
Yeah.
Usually when I am just tired of arguing about something that really shouldn't be an argument in the first place.
And that is exactly the point the sources make. It's a safety mechanism. Think about the social cost of having a strong opinion today.
It can be high.
In a polarized world, having a specific, articulated opinion is dangerous. It opens you up to debate, to criticism, to being canceled. If you state a fact, someone can attack that fact.
But vibes are safer.
Vibes are so much safer. They preserve ambiguity. If you just say, I just get a weird vibe from this whole situation, You haven't actually committed to a fact that can be disproven. You're just sharing a feeling.
It's emotional self-defense. It's like,
Right.
I can't be wrong about my own feelings, so I'll just stick to that.
Precisely. And that phrase, "it's not that deep," is so often a reaction to a world that feels overwhelmingly deep and chaotic. It's a way of saying, I cannot process any more complexity right now. I need to simplify. Please stop making me think about the geopolitical implications of my coffee brand. I just want a cup of coffee.
Which is so understandable. I think we all feel that burnout. The world is heavy. But there has to be a downside to this, right? If we just retreat into our vibes and refuse to engage with the deeper reality, that feels, well, dangerous.
That is the danger zone, and the sources use a fantastic analogy for this: abstract art.
Oh, I loved this part. The idea that vibes are like looking at an abstract painting.
Right. Think about a realistic portrait, a Rembrandt or something. It has lines, details, structure. You can see exactly what it is. You see the pores on the skin, the stitching on the clothes. Reality has hard edges.
Okay.
Abstract art, like a Rothko, it removes the line work. It removes the texture. It blurs everything together to emphasize the mood and the color. It's all about feelings.
Which is beautiful in a museum. I love a good Rothko.
In a gallery, it's stunning. But if you try to navigate reality like it's an abstract painting, if you're just blurring out all the details and only looking at the mood, you're going to run into problems.
Because reality actually does have hard edges.
Exactly. If you ignore the lines of the road because you're just, vibing with the scenery, you're going to crash the car.
So when just vibes replaces actual thinking, we lose the detail.
We lose more than that. We lose curiosity. Curiosity requires you to stay uncomfortable. It requires you to look at the details you don't understand, the things that don't quite fit the vibe you're getting.
And vibes offer quick closure.
So much closure. I don't like this person. Done. You don't have to ask why. You don't have to investigate if your feeling is actually correct. You just close the case.
And that creates what the sources call reality silos.
Yes. If everyone is operating purely on their own internal vibes, we completely lose our shared standards of evidence. We can't agree on what is real anymore.
I have my vibe, you have your vibe, and there's no bridge between them.
It's just two people feeling things at each other. There's no conversation. And this also brings up this really interesting tension between gatekeeping and inclusivity.
Okay, how so?
Well, vibes are very inclusive, right? Anyone can have a vibe. You don't need a PhD to feel something. You don't need to read all the academic literature to feel like something is wrong in your community.
That's true, and that democratization is a good thing. It validates people whose intuitions have been ignored by official channels for a long time.
For sure. But without some form of gatekeeping, and by that I just mean rigor, standards, fact-checking truth becomes really, really hard to find.
If every vibe is treated as equal to a research fact, we are in deep trouble.
We end up in a world where I feel like vaccines are bad carries the same weight as mountains of medical data.
That's the trade-off. Inclusivity is good, but a world of total noise is bad. We need filters. And this leads to what I think is the most important metaphor in all of the source material: the smoke alarm.
This is the key takeaway for anyone who is skeptical of vibes. Vibes are a smoke alarm, not a fire report.
Okay, lay this one on us. I think everyone has a complicated relationship with their smoke alarm.
For sure. Think about how a smoke alarm works. It is designed to be ridiculously sensitive. When it goes off, it tells you something is wrong. It is a signal.
Right.
But it doesn't tell you if the house is burning down or if you just burnt the toast.
Or if you just took a really hot shower and the steam set it off. Or if the battery is just low and it's decided to start chirping at 3 in the morning just to ruin your life.
Exactly. The alarm is crude. It just says alert. The huge mistake people make is treating the signal as the proof. They hear the alarm, the bad vibe, and they immediately assume the house is on fire, that the person is evil or the situation is catastrophic.
But wisdom is hearing the alarm and then going to investigate.
Yes. It's a compass, not a map. It points you in a direction, but it doesn't tell you what the terrain looks like.
And this connects to the difference between cynicism and skepticism, doesn't it?
It does. This is so crucial for you to understand as a listener. Overwhelm often leads to cynicism. Cynicism says the alarm is going off, so everything is ruined. Nothing matters. Everyone is lying. It's all just vibes anyway. That's a shutdown response.
Right. It's giving up.
But true skepticism is different. Skepticism asks questions. Skepticism says, the alarm is ringing. I wonder why. Let me go check the kitchen. We need so many more skeptics and far fewer cynics.
Okay, so let's recap. We've established that vibes are real, they're biological, they're ancient. but they aren't the whole picture. We need a way to balance the feeling with the thinking. We need to check the smoke alarm without just ripping it off the feeling.
And this is where the solution comes in. The source material outlines this really cool framework called subpersonalities.
This was my favorite part of the deep dive. It sounds a little psychological, maybe a little out there, but stay with us. It's not about having a disorder. It's just a way to visualize the different modes of your brain as a team of characters.
Like a cognitive team.
Right, because usually our internal world is just a monologue. It's just one voice screaming, I feel this, but maybe I'm wrong, but wait, what about the data? But that feels bad. It's just chaos.
I know that voice very well.
We all do.
Yeah.
This framework turns that monologue into a dialogue between different specialists. It helps you compartmentalize your thinking so you can actually manage it.
I love this concept. Let's meet the team. Who are the players inside our heads?
Okay, so first up you have the sensors. The sources give them names, which I think is great. They call them Addie and Mac.
Addie and Mac. They sound like the cool kids in the back of the class. They definitely wear sunglasses inside.
Laughs. They are the vibe squad. Their entire job is detection. They handle first impressions, social tone, aesthetic judgment. When you walk into that bar and feel off, or when you meet someone and you instantly click with them, that's Addie and Mac talking.
So they're fast, they're intuitive, they're emotional.
Totally. They don't care about facts. They care about how things feel. They are the smoke alarm.
Okay, so they're essential. If we didn't have them, we'd basically be robots. But if we only listen to them, we're reactive, we're running around screaming every time the toast burns.
Exactly.
Who keeps them in check?
That would be Tira. She is the investigator. She is the embodiment of the deep dive.
Kira. I picture her with a clipboard, maybe a messy bun, and she's holding a magnifying glass and a stack of peer-reviewed papers.
That's her. Tira handles analysis, synthesis, skepticism, and verifying claims. When Addie says, that guy is creepy, Tira's the one who says, okay, let's look at his actual behavior. Let's check the facts. Let's Google him. Let's see if he actually did anything objectively wrong or if he just reminds you of your ex-boyfriend.
I feel like Tira is the one who gets exhausted the fastest in the modern world. She's the one trying to read the terms and conditions while Addie and Mac are just clicking accept so they can play the game.
She absolutely is. Tira runs on glucose and willpower, and those are very finite resources. We'll talk about why she's so tired in a minute. But there are two more groups to round out the team.
Okay.
You have the innovators. Their names are Tommy and Val, and they are focused on one question: what could be? They break patterns. They prioritize possibility. They're the ones who say, who cares about the vibes or the facts? Let's just try something crazy and new.
These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the big picture thinkers.
Exactly. And finally, you have Kenny and Devin. They are the stewards.
The stewards. They sound responsible.
Very. Their job is to ask what must be protected. They handle sustainability, risk management, continuity. They're the ones saying, hey, let's not burn the house down just because Tommy has a wild new idea or because Addie has a bad feeling.
But why does visualizing them as actual people help? Why not just say, you should think more critically?
Because it clarifies the internal tension. It stops you from thinking you are wrong for having conflicting thoughts inside your own head.
Oh, that's interesting.
If you feel torn between, I have a really bad feeling about this, but I have no proof, that isn't a malfunction. That is just Addie arguing with Tira. And that's a healthy argument to have.
It reframes it.
It reframes innovation versus stewardship, or vibes versus deep dives, not as contradictions, but as necessary negotiations. It creates a healthy process. It creates a loop.
Okay, walk us through the loop. How does it work in practice?
So, step one, detection. Addie senses something. Hey, this looks weird, or this feels amazing.
Investigation. Tira gets called in to check it out. Okay, let me look into that. What are the facts here? And then step 3, calibration. Kenny the steward looks at Tira's report and decides if it's safe. Okay, we can proceed, but let's be careful. Or, no, shut it down.
It turns the chaos in your head into a functional board meeting.
Exactly. And you are the CEO. You have to listen to all the reports from your department heads and then make the final call. You don't let the intern from the mailroom, Addie, run the entire company, but you also don't ignore them when they run in screaming that the building is on fire.
But here is the problem, right? In the information age, this board meeting is under constant attack. The room is on fire, all the phones are ringing off the hook, and someone is banging on the door.
That is the context we cannot ignore. We aren't doing this thinking in a quiet, peaceful vacuum. We are thinking while being absolutely bombarded by notifications, news, social media, and now AI.
The context is exhaustion.
It's cognitive overload. The psychological environment of the information age is defined by too much input. And when the brain is overloaded, it simplifies. It has to.
It's a defense mechanism.
It is. It cannot process everything deeply. So vibes become a heuristic, a mental shortcut for survival. If you actually tried to get Tira to deep dive every single piece of information you saw in a day, every tweet, every news headline, every ad, every email, you would have a complete nervous breakdown by noon.
So relying on vibes isn't just laziness, it's actually a survival strategy. It's a form of mental triage.
It is, and it's also about agency. The research shows that people shut down when they feel they cannot influence outcomes. If the world feels too big, too broken, and too complex to fix, you retreat into the safety of your own vibes. You stop asking what is true, and you start asking what feels good, or what helps me cope with all this.
And now we have to throw artificial intelligence into this already chaotic mix. This feels like it complicates things on a whole new level.
The AI factor is huge. The sources describe AI as an amplifier. It just turns the volume up on everything. For the Tira and Tommy modes in your brain, AI is incredible.
Yeah.
It accelerates learning like nothing before. You can deep dive faster than ever. You can synthesize vast amounts of data in seconds. You can say, hey, AI, summarize this 50-page academic report for me in 5 bullet points. Tara loves that.
But for the overwhelmed, for the person who's already just trying to survive.
For the overwhelmed, AI is deeply destabilizing. It creates even more noise. And frankly, there is a massive risk of bad actors using AI to specifically exploit vibe-based thinking.
How so? What does that look like?
Well, think about scams or misinformation campaigns. In the past, you might be able to spot a scam because of a typo in the email or a weird pixelation in a photo. Hard evidence.
Little clues that Tira could spot?
Little clues for Tira. But AI can generate content that has the perfect vibe. It can mimic the tone, the aesthetic, the feeling of trustworthiness with flawless precision. It can create a fake news anchor who looks and sounds exactly like the one you've trusted for 20 years.
Oh, that's terrifying.
If you are operating purely on Addy and Mac mode, if you are just trusting your gut feeling about what looks real, you are incredibly vulnerable to an AI that knows exactly how to manipulate that feeling.
It's like the smoke alarm is being hacked. The AI knows exactly what frequency to play to make you feel safe or to make you feel angry and bypass your critical thinking entirely.
Exactly. So the most important skill of the future isn't just knowing things. The skill of the future is calibration. It's knowing when to engage Tira and when to protect your energy. It's knowing which mode to be in at which time.
Okay, so let's get really practical, because I don't want to leave people just feeling terrified of AI and exhausted by their own brains. How do we actually do this? How do I know if my vibe is a real signal or if I'm just hungry and cranky? The sources talk about a maintenance mentality.
Right. You have to run diagnostics on your own vibes, just like you would on a car. If the check engine light comes on, you don't immediately just drive the car into a ditch. You pull over and check the code.
So how do we check the code on a vibe?
The sources give us 3 specific indicators to help you tell signal from noise. To tell if Addie is spotting a real threat or if she's just making noise because you're tired.
Okay, what's number 1?
The first one is specificity. Noise is usually incredibly vague. I just feel weird, I don't like it, the vibes are off. A real signal tends to become more specific when you inspect it.
So you ask why?
You ask why. I feel weird because his tone of voice didn't seem to match his facial expression. Or I feel anxious because we haven't actually discussed the budget yet in this meeting.
Okay, that's good. If I can point to the thing that's causing the feeling, it's more likely to be a real signal. If I can't explain it at all, even just to myself, it might just be noise.
Exactly. Push yourself to name it. If you can't name it, be a little suspicious of it. The second indicator is persistence. Noise often fades with your mood. If you eat a sandwich or take a nap or go for a walk and the bad vibe completely disappears, it was probably just noise. It was your internal state. But if the signal returns again and again, even when you're in a different mood, a different environment, it's worth investigating.
I love that. Eat a sandwich is honestly great life advice in general. Am I depressed or is my blood sugar just low?
It resolves, I'm not kidding, probably 50% of problems. Physiology mimics psychology constantly. And the third indicator is independence.
Independence.
Ask yourself, would I feel this on a quiet day? Or am I just reacting to the stress of the room? If everyone else is panicking, am I just mirroring their emotions? Is this feeling actually mine?
Be specific, check if it stays, and check if it's yours. That's a really good checklist.
And once you've run that diagnostic, you have to decide which team member to put in charge for the decision. This is the switching framework. The sources propose a set of rules for when to use which subpersonality.
The how-to manual for the brain. I love it.
You just ask yourself 3 simple questions. 1, how high are the stakes? 2, how reversible is this decision? 3, and how certain do I really need to be?
Okay, give us a scenario. Walk us through it.
All right, scenario A. You are choosing a restaurant for dinner with a few friends. Stakes, very low. If it's bad, you just get pizza on the way home. Reversible, totally. You just don't go back. Certainty needed, low. In this case, use Addie and Mac. Go with the vibes. This place looks cool. I like the music. Done. Do not waste Tira's precious energy reading 500 Yelp reviews for a taco shop.
I am so guilty of this.
Yeah.
I am definitely guilty of over-investigating lunch. I will spend 20 minutes reading reviews for a $15 meal. Is the salsa authentic? What did user 492 say about the lighting?
That is Tira burnout waiting to happen. You are using a high-powered detective for a misdemeanor crime. Save her energy because you are going to need her for scenario B, buying a house or making a major medical decision. Stakes, incredibly high. Life-changing. Reversible? Not really. It is very, very hard to unbuy a house. Certainty needed. Very high.
And this is when you must switch out of vibe mode.
You have to. You cannot buy a house just because it has good vibes.
Oh, but the sunlight hits the breakfast nook so perfectly in the morning.
Exactly. That's Addie talking, and you should listen to her. That's important. But if the foundation is cracked and the roof is leaking, you are in deep trouble. You need Tara on the case.
And Kenny.
And Kenny the steward. You need inspections, data, budgets, neighborhood crime stats. You need to be willing to override the good vibe with hard facts.
That distinction is so helpful. It's just about energy management. You can't be a detective for everything. You have to save the detective work for the major crimes, not the jaywalking.
Precisely. And this brings us to the final analogy in the text, which I think is just beautiful. It's the shadow analogy.
I really like this one. It feels very poetic.
A vibe is like a shadow. Imagine you're in a dark room and you see a shadow on the wall. The shadow tells you something is there. It proves there's an object casting it, but it doesn't tell you what it is.
Right. A shadow of a cute bunny rabbit can look a lot like a shadow of a terrifying monster if the angle is just right.
And wisdom is walking over and turning on the light. Don't ignore the shadow. It proves something is there. Don't pretend you didn't see it. That's just denial. But don't treat the shadow as if it is the object. That's paranoia. Turn on the light. Use Tira to investigate what cast the shadow in the first place.
So what does this all mean for us? We've covered history, psychology, the cast of characters in our heads, and how to survive the coming AI age. It feels like we're trying to build, I don't know, a centrist position in the brain.
The synthesis is this. A healthy mind is a conversation. It's not about choosing vibes or truth. We need both. It's about integration. Depth is a tool, not a lifestyle.
A tool, not a lifestyle. I like that.
You cannot deep dive into everything or you will drown in information. But you cannot just surf on vibes forever or you will eventually crash into the hard shore of reality.
It really is a paradox, isn't it? We have more access to objective truth than ever before in human history. I can look up anything on my phone right now. I can read the primary source documents for free from a university library 1,000 miles away.
And yet
we have more reason to retreat into impressions because there's just too much truth to handle.
that is the defining challenge of our time, managing the intake. And the source material leaves us with a really simple rule of thumb that I think is perfect for carrying around in your pocket.
Feel first. Listen to Addie and Mac. Honor the intuition.
Think second. Call in Tira to verify the feeling. And number 3, decide last. Let the whole team vote, including Kenny the steward, who's worried about the long-term consequences.
And I really like the closing thought from the text. Sometimes the wisest move is to just rest instead of deciding at all.
Absolutely. In a culture that demands urgency and hot takes on everything, we forget that. Being selective about what you deep dive into isn't a sign of ignorance, it's a sign of survival.
If you try to care about everything, you will end up caring about nothing.
You'll just burn out.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot to process, but in a really good way. I feel like I need to go have a team meeting with Addie, Mac, and Tira. Maybe buy them all a coffee.
Just make sure Kenny approves the budget for the coffee.
Deal. Kenny is always watching the wallet.
Ah!
Well, that's it for this deep dive. We hope this gives you a new way to think about those feelings you can't quite explain. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Stay curious.
Or just vibe, whatever you need today. Bye, everyone.